Oh my God, Becky, look at her face.
And welcome to the Stop Chasing Skinny radio program, where every Tuesday night on KineticHiFi.com, we invite a guest to talk about their specialty in creating your fit life. If you've read any of my story, you've heard my tagline, life begins when you stop chasing skinny. I used to just overeat, overexercise, and did all those things that, you read in the magazines that said, just to lose weight, blah, blah, blah. So since then, I have really been on a mission to create something that is more attainable, sustainable, and maintainable. So anyway, today I brought on Mr. Jim Kirwan. He is a published author of the book called The Exercise Factor. And I had the privilege of meeting him the other night and listening to him speak about this book. So I, of course, wanted to get him on here. Mr. Kirwan has written this book. He told an amazing story to go with it. So I'm just going to turn it right over to him so he can do a little introduction of himself and tell you the touching story that got him into fitness.
Well, thank you firstly for having me here. I'm absolutely delighted. Well, maybe I should give you a little bit of background. You've probably guessed by now that I'm not from around here. I'm from Ireland. And I came to America 11 years ago. And I set up a business which was called Try Sports. And that was all about encouraging people to try. Some people think it was about a triathlon business, and it was to an extent, but it really was about trying. And I'm on this mission, if you like, to get people to try the aerobic activities of walking, running, swimming, cycling, fitness, and maybe even a triathlon. But I've kind of progressed from that to this latest mission of mine, which is to get America moving. And there are probably two reasons why. I mean, I'm often asked, why do I do what I do? Why did you step down from Try Sports to be on a mission to get America moving? And there are two significant reasons. There are others. So the first one is a long time in the making, but very personal. The second one is much more recent, indeed, happened over here in America. So maybe I'll go through them.
Oh, that'd be great.
One by one.
Yeah, thank you.
So the first one I said is very personal, and it goes back to an event that took place just past my 20th birthday. It was the 10th of May, 1975. And I had been out celebrating my 20th with some pals. It was a Friday night, and I came home actually reasonably early. It was about midnight, just after midnight. And I needed to go to the bathroom, as you do after drinking a few pints of Guinness, is what we did back in Ireland.
We still do.
And I remember very vividly passing my parents' bedroom. The light was on, the door was slightly ajar, and my dad was standing with his back to me, about 5 yards away. And I just simply passed by and I never said anything. I don't know why, but I regret not saying goodnight to my dad. Because as it turned out, when I woke up the next morning, he hadn't been feeling well. And my sister told me that my mum had taken him to the local St. Vincent's Hospital. Now, this was back in the 70s, so there were no cell phones available. So we had to sit kind of tight and wonder what had happened. And a couple of hours later, a car pulled up outside, and I was shocked when only my mum stood up from behind the wall. And I remember as she turned to walk to the hall door, I was looking out the window, and I knew from the way she was walking, from her body language, and then as she got closer, from her face, I knew before she said anything that Dad wasn't coming home. And what had happened was that he had died really fast in the ER from a massive heart attack. He was 47 years of age. He was on he had angina and he was on meds, so they clearly didn't work very well. He didn't smoke. He didn't drink, which in Ireland was a pretty big deal back in the 70s for a man of that age. I guessed he was 10, 15 pounds overweight, but not too bad. I think he had a pretty reasonable diet. I believe he was under a bit of stress at work. The one thing I know for sure is he didn't exercise. The occasional walk with my mum, the very, very odd game of golf, but that was it. So for 12 years, 15 years nearly, from the time he stopped playing rugby, which he played at around 32, to the day he died, 15 years, he really didn't exercise. And I believe that that was a major factor in his premature death. He'd be 86 if he was alive today. That's 39 lost years, and that is my primary motivating factor for doing what I do.
Wow, that's because I hear stories all the time about I have a lot of clients that they are somewhat concerned about their health, but a lot of times it's the outward appearance part, and they think, oh, since I'm not very overweight, I eat relatively healthy, it's not a big deal. It's a very big deal, and that's way too many. I mean, 47. That's really, really young.
And what's scary is that he's not untypical. I mean, there's a lot of folks out there, and the situation really isn't getting a lot better. And we know that you have to exercise if you want to be healthy. I mean, if I can make that absolutely crystal clear here today, and so that everybody is clear about it, you cannot be healthy unless you exercise.
Yeah.
Period.
That's yes. Thank you for sharing that, because a lot of people think, oh well, it's not that big of a deal. Like I'm not really overweight. I hear that a lot.
Yeah,
oh, I'm not overweight.
I'm in my 30s now, or I'm in my 40s. 40 people in their 40s or 50s don't exercise. We don't need to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I did when I was younger. No,
it doesn't carry over. Your health is dynamic, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
Just because you did it before.
There's a correlation in my mind between why we actually, start, in a sense, going downhill, what I call the start of the slippery slope. We begin to lose muscle mass in our early 30s. Why? Well, I believe it's because we stop exercising in our early 30s. I believe that's what my dad did. He stopped.
Yeah.
And so there's this correlation going on. And so why are we surprised that we lose muscle mass when we stop exercising?
Yeah. Well, and I think, too, sometimes the statistics can be misread. So some people may hear you start losing muscle mass in your 30s, and they may just say, oh, it's just my age. But it's not just your age. It's the lifestyle factors combined with your age. And so the age sometimes just ends up happening to be just a coincidence.
Yeah. We're all getting older. I mean, and there's nothing we can do about that, but we can definitely influence that process. What I describe the process, we can't control the outcome. We don't know when we're going to die. We just don't.
No.
Who knows? We don't know what's around that corner. But we can take actions, and we can control the process. And I believe with my heart and soul that the actions we take will influence our life expectancy. In other words, how long we're going to live, and the quality of our lives. And we can put that aging accelerator firmly into reverse. Yes. And we can transform our lives if we want to.
If we want to. That's the key, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, Mr. Kirwan's, is it the tagline? Is that what it is? Get America Moving? Yes, that's great. That's because we are, I kind of joke about it sometimes, but I'm like, well, we've kind of engineered ourselves fat, because you don't have to walk upstairs anymore. You don't have to physically do a lot of things. Right. So then we don't.
Yeah.
So now that was your first, that's the really deep
personal reason. The second one.
What is your second one?
Well, when I got here to America and got involved with tri-sports, initially I was involved with lots of people who were fit and healthy, because they were the types of people typically who were coming to the store. But then I got involved in the Healthy Charleston Challenge. I was asked to speak at the challenge. And in fact, I've spoken now for the last 15 successive challenges. So that, in a sense, forced me to research and to do homework for every different talk, because I wanted them to be different. I wanted them to be interesting. I wanted to motivate the participants of the Healthy Charleston Challenge. And maybe I should just say, by the way, the Healthy Charleston Challenge is a program run by MUSC, their wellness center or wellness department for overweight and obese people. It's an incredibly well recognized and regarded program. It's award-winning. So it was a real honor for me to be involved. But as I said, I had to do my homework to be ready to speak to these people. And in doing that research, I was just blown away by the problems that we're facing here in America. And it forced me to do even more research and to start really learning about obesity, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and the problems that we're facing. And I don't know if people really understand just how significant the problems are. And they're not going away anytime soon. And so that is the second reason I just felt I have to get all of these things that are inside in my head out there and try to do something to influence what's happening. And so I came up with the idea, well, let me help to get America moving. And then the book is really pouring all of that, what was inside me, out into a book in one place where people could read about it. And the tagline being ease into the best shape of your life, regardless of your age, your weight, or your current fitness level. And what that is saying to people is, look, you don't have to decide, I can't do this if I'm 55, if I'm 30 or 40 pounds overweight, or if I have been inactive for the past 12 months or 12 years. You can draw a line in the sand and you can make a decision today that you're going to move forward from here and change your life. But you have to do it the right way. Hence the word ease into the best shape of your life, because it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah, and this is timely because it is just after the new year, and I do see this sometimes where somebody will make a New Year's resolution and they will start running, but their knees can't handle the extra weight that they've put on and the inactivity they've had for over the years, and so then they end up injuring a knee. I've seen that a lot. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. It's ease into it, and you don't want to be so sore that you can't move and you're miserable, and you don't have to. It doesn't have to hurt. I mean, that's I think a lot of people want to hurt to make it seem like they're doing something, and it doesn't have to hurt. Yeah,
not at all. And I mean, I think when I played rugby when I was younger, and the season would end in May, and then we would take a break until August. And during that period, we were still reasonably active, but we weren't playing rugby. So I can always remember coming back in August and with fear and trepidation of the training programs. And we were absolutely, fleeced by our trainers, and there'd be guys getting sick out in the corner, of the pitch, and we'd be sore and really achy for days and days and days. And that was the way the training was done. Now, it was probably okay for folks who were used to it in their 20s and their early 30s. But if you're in your 50s or 60s,
that's a different ballgame.
You're overweight and you haven't been active for a long time, it's totally inappropriate to start an exercise regimen in that kind of a way. Right. Totally inappropriate.
And I think as we age too, when we're younger, we're full of it, right? We're full of energy and we want to kind of, please hurt me kind of thing. Let's do this. Yeah. And as you age, you realize that's not fun. We need to do something that's more sustainable, something that doesn't hurt so bad. So we're just going to take a really quick break, and we're going to be right back. You've heard me talk a lot about learning how to reach your fitness goals, and more frequently, how to look as fit as you feel, while learning to stop chasing skinny. And you've also thought to yourselves, I do want to reach my fitness goals in a shorter, more concise way, to stop wasting my time bouncing back and forth from fitness tip to fitness tip in magazines, wasting hours researching the latest and greatest diet, only to end up looking and feeling the same way you've been looking and feeling for years. And my guess is that you've been thinking about this for a long time. Am I right? I know the feeling because I played these games too, for a very long time, in fact. I'm here to tell you this. Stop thinking and sign up for the SK FitLife Challenge, an online training, nutrition, and coaching program that will lead you through 12 weeks of step-by-step guidance to help you finally reach your goals of looking fabulous and feeling fabulous. You're going to get to free up all the headspace you've been wasting picking through random diet information being fed to you through the media and simplifying the seemingly complicated world of health. Your chances now. Do you really need more time, more information, more plans for the future? Or do you want to become that fit person today? Because the truth is this. You can be that fit person, or you can be the person that sits around thinking about becoming fitter. It's your choice. Read more magazines, blog posts, and bits and pieces on social media, or take action. Because let's face it, if you're not where you want to be, your current program is not working out for you. I want you to be successful. And why is this? Because you've already got what it takes. You've been doing the work all along. It's just been the wrong work. You have the desire, the discipline, and the potential. Now let's get you on the right track so those efforts you are already putting in can take you in the best direction possible. Join me and the hundreds of other SK FitLife clients for the 12-week online fitness challenge at skfitlife.com. All right, now let's get back to the show. Welcome back to the Stop Chasing Skinny radio show. So we want to talk just a little bit about expectations. During this little break that we just took, we were telling some funny stories about just recognizing our age. So I am 35 now, and I was just saying that once I turned 35, oh wow, I have to warm up. I used to just be able to jump out there and do it. Maybe 30 to 34, I kind of had to warm up like 5 minutes. Now it's a solid 20 minutes. So we were talking about expectations, what to expect from our bodies as we age, especially if you've been inactive for a little while. And one of the quotes I really love from Jim's book is about how we spend so many years getting out of shape, but then we expect to get right back into conditioning just in a few weeks. That really caught my attention. I think part of it is all of the marketing stuff out there talking about, oh, do it this way, do it that way, like instant gratification. But that's not really how it works. So if you could just share a little bit about creating like some realistic expectations for yourself, especially if, say, you were that high school and that college athlete, and then you kind of trailed off, like you kind of, stopped kind of at the peak of your game, like you're 30, 32, you're still going hard, and then life gets in the way and you just kind of stop. You circle back around to it like 45, 50, your expectations of yourself are going to be different from when you were doing it when you were 30 or 32. So can you share just a little bit about how we would get into this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was saying a little bit earlier to you during the break that, what we did when we were in our 20s or maybe in our early 30s is quite different to what you would do in your 40s, your 50s, your 60s or beyond. And we really need to pay attention to that and learn to accept it. Because if you're 50 and you're overweight and you're out of shape, you haven't been exercising for quite a while, you may have been an athlete in your 20s, but it's in a sense irrelevant now. And you need to take stock of where you are today. You need to recalibrate completely. And it really does depend on where you are. The variables are your age, your weight, and how fit or inactive perhaps you are. And so it may be just starting out walking.
Yeah. There's no shame in that game.
It may be starting out to walk for 20 minutes 3 times a week just to get started, and then hopefully you can gradually build up to maybe 30 minutes 4 times a week. I mean, the minimum amount of exercise somebody should be getting is 3 hours a week, and that would be inclusive of what I would call strength exercises. And I'm not talking about pumping iron, I'm talking about just maintaining strength. So there are lots of different exercises that you could do for that, Stephanie, and you'd know more about it probably even than I would.
So you're talking about like body weight exercises, push-ups.
That would be my kind of sort of go-to exercises. So you're talking about maybe 2.5 hours of cardio, and it would be cardio initially.
Yeah.
You cannot, when you're overweight and out of shape, start off doing high intensity exercise. You need to gradually build it up. It needs to be a gradual, progressive, sustained approach. You want to have fun. Yeah. You want to enjoy it. You want to avoid getting injured. This is really one of the biggest things that I see with people getting back into exercise. They go at it too fast, too hard. They get injured, they stop, and then they start using terms like, "Oh, I can't do this. It's not for me. Obviously, my body is not made to be able to do this." And they kind of get this sense of, "Well, I can't do this exercise because I always get hurt and I always get injured." And the reason that they do is often because they approach the exercise in the wrong way.
Yeah.
So you need to firstly work up to the 3 hours. So if you're doing 0, you go from 0 to 1, from 1 to 2, and from 2 to 3. And you should probably do that over a number of weeks. It obviously depends on where you are and how long it has been and your personal circumstances. But that's an altogether more realistic approach than going to the local track and starting to sprint up and down.
Yeah.
That just doesn't work. But I see that all the time.
I do too. I do. Yeah. Or, somebody goes from not running any miles to I must run 5.
Yeah.
I used to run 10, but I'll start with 5. And
it's crazy. There's a rule in the running world, but it applies just as much to any exercise, I believe, and it's the rule of 10%. You never increase the amount of exercise you're going to do, or indeed the intensity of what you're going to do by more than 10%. And you never do both of those two things at the same time.
Oh, that's super valuable information. Because like I said, I mean, right here in the new year, people go at it really hard. Something else that you talked about a little in the first segment, and then we just brushed up against again, is finding something that works for you. A lot of people find me on my social media. I'm fit. I'm an athlete. I love doing Spartan races. Like I do like that stuff. But if you give me a workout that I have to pump myself up every single time before I go in there and do it, even me, I'm not going to do it unless it is a very specific time frame. I'm talking like maybe 4 weeks, and it's only a couple times a week. Like, so when somebody is trying to figure out what works for them in their exercise routine, they should find something that they enjoy doing, right?
Yeah, it's very important. Exercise should be fun. Exercise should not be a pain in the butt. It shouldn't be seen as a chore. It shouldn't be seen as something to get out of the way as quickly as possible just because somebody has told you that you need to exercise. If you want to live a healthy, active lifestyle, it's really important that you like it and that you enjoy it. And there are so many things that you can do that you can enjoy.
Yeah.
I mean, look back to when you were a kid and what did you like doing then? You might get some clues as to what you're likely to like doing now. If you were a dancer way back then, maybe you could do Zumba or aerobic classes which have a dance sort of aspect to it. So, use your imagination, try different things. There's lots of different things out there, but there's also lots of preconceived notions about certain things.
Yeah.
So you might think, for example, that you can't run or that you hate running. I often say to people, look, you might believe that right now, but if you give it a chance and go about it in the right way, you might be surprised. And there are hundreds of thousands of people out there who once upon a time said they hate this and now they love it. And the same is true of cycling, of swimming, of triathlon, I'm sure it's true of yoga and Zumba and skiing and kayaking and canoeing, and there's just tons of different things people can do.
Yeah, and it's how you get into it. It's how you see it. I do have a friend who, she was running all the time, and she said, well, I want to be a runner. And I was like, you run, so you're a runner. Well, I'm not really a runner. I'm like, you run, so you're a runner.
Yeah.
And that's good. Like, go ahead. She wanted to be a runner.
Yeah.
And I said, but you run. So in her mind, she wasn't an elite runner, so she didn't think she was a runner, and you don't have to be. Not
Doesn't
at all.
matter. I remember going back a long time. It would have been to the early 80s. And I had stopped playing rugby. No, I hadn't actually stopped playing rugby. I think a couple of years later I stopped. But I was into running. I was now doing a bit of rugby and doing a bit of running. And I decided I was going to do a marathon, which, was all the craze back in the 80s. And I remember I must have been coming from work, and I met a friend or a colleague, and he said to me, I was wearing my running clothes, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm training for the Dublin Marathon." And he looked at me up and down and he said, "So you're a jogger."
A jogger.
And I thought to myself for probably about 2 seconds, but it seemed like longer. And I said, "No, I'm a runner, because I'm running as fast as I can go." So I've always called running.
Yes.
I'm a runner. I'm
Yes.
not a jogger, because it doesn't matter how good you are. I mean, the Kenyans are able to run a mile in under 3:40 at this stage. Who cares? Doesn't matter what you can do it in, just do it.
You're doing it,
And
right?
you're a runner if that's what you're doing.
And but if you really don't, I mean, I've had this too, where people think that, and I don't know, my own personal thought is that it comes from a lot of fitness magazines that say, "Oh, you burn the most calories," like, where they show you the chart. Running burns this many calories, swimming burns this many calories, cycling. And so I think that's where a lot of it came from. But I have a lot of people who will come to me and they'll say, "I want to get fit, but I don't want to run." Yeah. And I'm like, "Okay, well, if you don't want to run, let's find something else that you want to do." And my mom's a perfect example for that. She was about 50 pounds overweight. She really didn't like running, and she was overweight, so it was very uncomfortable for her. But she thought, "You know what? If I could ride a bike, I think that might work." Yeah. And so she helped me. It was in 2001. 2003. I moved to Seattle. And she helped me, and she said, "How much do I owe you for that plane ticket?" And I was like, "I don't want the money. Can you just buy a bike?" So I get a card a couple weeks later, and I was like, I was totally expecting a check to be in it. And instead, it was a picture of her and her bike. Yeah. And so she bought a bike. She lost 50 pounds. She rode the MS 150 and hasn't missed a year since. And that was 12 years ago. So I was looking at my mom, like very, overweight, out of shape. Yeah. "Can you please do something, Mom?" So it's really... It's important to help the ones we love. So if you're a listener and you're already fit, how do you help the people that you love, and in supporting them to get healthier? So I guess what would be your advice on that?
Well, the first thing you have to do is really try to understand where they're at and where they're coming from, and get into their head and get into what they're trying to achieve. I was only yesterday down at the track in Mount Pleasant with a client of mine, and she'd be in her 50s, and she's overweight, and she's really just starting to get back in. And so I was asking her, does she exercise with other people? And she said, "Well, I have a few friends, but to be honest, I'm always holding them back. And I don't like going with them because I feel as if I'm too slow." And so I said to her, and I'll say this to you now, if you are out there and you're pretty fit and you want to help people to get to where you are, is to understand where they're at and go to their level. Be prepared to actually go back to their level and to help them to get to where they need to be. And if that means, for example, if you're a runner and you're used to running at, let's say, 10-minute mile pace, be prepared to go for a couple of runs with your pal and run at 15-minute mile pace, or do a walk run with them. Why not? To help them get back on track. Within a few months, they'll be where you are, and you'll be able to do it together, and you'll have fun, but you'll have done something wonderful for that person. So it's getting into their head and trying to understand, and don't be afraid to go slow. It's actually good for you, in my view, to take some easy days. Yeah. You can do the hard days when you want to, but take a couple of easy days and do it with your pals, your family, or your friends, and get them involved too.
Yeah, that's great. That's really great, because it's a good time to connect with somebody too. Whenever you're out and you're exercising and
it's such an important way to build relationships and to create fun in exercise. I mean, the most enjoyable aspect for me of exercise is being able to do it with other people, and you can make friends. You can develop new friends. You can develop great relationships with your partner. For example, I try to go run once a week with my wife.
Yeah, my boyfriend and I do lots of fitness stuff together. Even
So-
just walking the bridge. We walk the bridge all the time. It's a great time to talk.
But it's a great time to talk,
Yeah.
and things that maybe you wouldn't, because you're like ships in the night a lot of the time, and you're passing each other out and you never get to talk. But now all of a sudden you have an hour to spend some time talking. So it's a great way to develop your relationships, to stay in contact with people. And I'm not saying you have to do it with other people all of the time. I actually like exercising by myself.
Yeah.
It's a great time out to meditate, if you like, for yourself, and to think about things and to be creative. I mean, I'm at my most creative when I go out for a run. My kids will tell you, when I come back, the first thing I do is I run
Write
into
it
my
down.
office and I write down all of the great ideas that came into my head.
It's like it gets knocked loose when you're exercising.
I
or
have no
something.
ideas any other time, but when I'm exercising, they're great.
Yeah, if you see me at the gym, there's a good chance that I'm writing down ideas, not my workout.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I'll carry a notebook around with me.
Yeah.
And then I think the other important thing for somebody who is not very fit yet, or not to your level, or just getting started, I think a lot of people who are just beginning think that people who are very fit are judging them, and we're not. Like, we have so much respect for somebody who's just getting started. We know it's so hard. It's not a judgment thing. You're not like, oh, well, you're not as good as me. No, we know what it's like to be just beginning, and if somebody is like that, well, then maybe they're not a good friend.
It's pretty sad, because there's always going to be somebody who's better than you. I mean, unless you're the Olympic champion or the world champion, there's always somebody better than you. So, get used to it. I was never a great runner. I was a pretty decent runner, but it was because I worked hard at it and I enjoyed it. But I was never going to win races. I've won a few things here and there, but nothing dramatic. But I wasn't concerned about that.
Yeah.
But so it's really important to put your pride, in your back pocket. Forget about it. I can remember a few years ago, we had a run and walking club in Tri-Sports, and our focus at the start was in encouraging people, again, to try to get involved. And I remember one Saturday, and it's vivid in my mind again, we were on the beach in the Isle of Palms, beautiful Saturday morning, and the group was strung out by about half a mile, from the people who were at the front of the group to the guy at the back. And because I was, one of the leaders, I would sort of run up and down, and I went back to the back. And there was a guy there who was really struggling. He was walking, and I said, "Come on," Robert was his name. Let's sort of do a little bit of running together. And we'd run for maybe 200 meters, and then we'd walk, and then we'd run again, and then we'd walk, and whatever. But that guy has now run marathons and half marathons. He's totally transformed his life.
Awesome.
And I don't know, I mean, I'm not trying to make myself out to be a great guy or anything here, but had I not gone back to him that day, who knows where he would have ended up. He might have just thrown in the towel and said, "Oh, this is just not for me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do this because, I'm not good enough. I can't keep up with everybody." He was last.
Yeah.
But somebody has to be last. It doesn't really matter.
Yep. Yeah, you're absolutely
when
right.
kids are racing, I was very heavily involved in cross country for many years and track and field. There's always somebody who comes last in the race, always. And in my book, they're just as important as the person who comes first.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was last a lot. I was the only girl a lot of times as the lifeguard, and so I was the last fish sometimes. Those boys they'd show me.
Yeah.
but you're still out there and you're doing it, and it's the experience, and nobody's judging you on if you're last or not. And I'm very competitive, but with myself, and I do like to have somebody that I could chase, because it just challenges me to push myself harder. But if I didn't, it's not about beating the other person. I mean, well, kind of a little bit sometimes, but just as a personal thing, not like I need to be better than you. Except for that time when the 22 and 23-year-old girls showed up to my boot camp that I did as a 34-year-old, and they beat me in sprints, and I was like, "Whoa, what just happened?"
Yeah.
So we did enough until I could beat them, but that was just me.
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, it is good to be competitive, and I encourage people certainly to compete with themselves and to set their goals and to see how they progress and to high five each other when they achieve their goals.
Yeah.
I mean, it really can be fun.
Yeah.
It's
It's friendly competition, right?
It's friendly competition, not losing too much sleep over it though.
Oh,
not
gosh,
getting not getting put out. It's just all part of the fun. The
For me, it was, do I still have it? Yeah, I still got it. Because I mean, I'm whole 10 years older, so. We're going to take one really quick break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Stop Chasing Skinny radio show. So today I have Jim Kirwan. He was the owner of Tri Sports here in Charleston. That's a really big deal. If you're local, I remember buying stuff from that store the other times that I lived here when I was doing a lot of triathlons. So it's really cool for me to be able to interview him. Something that Mr. Kirwan offers now, along with his book, is some running. It's a running program. So it's a running program called Anyone Can Run, and he offers it on his website. So I wanted him to share a little bit about that and his philosophy on helping somebody to get running. Because what I do see sometimes is somebody who will just, and I did this myself, this is why I know, somebody will just run lots and lots of miles, but eventually that can be detrimental maybe to your metabolism or to your joints, that kind of thing. So if you could talk to us about running smarter, that would be great.
Yeah. Do you want me to talk a little bit about Anyone Can Run?
Yes.
And
yes.
we'll talk about that first and then get into this smarter, because Anyone Can Run is really designed for people who right now are not runners and who think they would like to be, or maybe even for the people who think they don't want to be a runner or that they can't run. And I'm sort of putting the question mark up there in their mind saying, hey, maybe you can do this too if you give it a shot. Because
I love that.
Because some people are, they have this fixed notion that they can't do it.
Right.
And it's often based on experience, the way they've done it before. They've tried it a certain way and it hasn't worked. And my experience over the years, many years, has told me that the reason for many people that it doesn't work is because they actually approach it the wrong way. And this applies to most training programs, by the way. In my view, this is of course is my view. Most beginner programs, sometimes they're referred to as Couch to 5K, for example. Introduce into the program a beginner form of high intensity interval training.
Okay. This is great information, by the way, because we see a lot of these programs online, and we don't know, that's where
right.
do we go?
Okay, so let me explain what's actually happening when somebody starts one of these programs, or maybe starts it themselves. They might warm up, hopefully they would warm up for 10 minutes, where they're running very easy. But then the training program they're walking, not running. They're walking because they haven't started running.
Okay.
So they're walking. And then they are said, okay, we're going to run for a minute. And everybody runs for a minute.
Yep.
And then they'll stop at the end of the minute and they'll walk for a minute, maybe 2 minutes, and then they'll do another minute of running, and then they'll walk for 2, and then they'll do another minute. That's called high intensity interval training. I say it's for beginners because it's not very significant what they're doing, but it actually is for them.
Okay.
It may not be significant if you're fit and used to doing high intensity interval training, but if you've never done it or you haven't done it for a long, long time, all of a sudden to start it is quite hard. It's quite tough. Let's say you were walking at 17-minute mile pace or 18-minute mile pace, which would be pretty typical.
Yes.
All of a sudden you've gone from 17 or 18 down to maybe 12 or even 10-minute mile pace, depending on where you're coming from. That's a huge change. And you've gone from aerobic to anaerobic very quickly. It feels uncomfortable, and that's why you have to stop after a minute. That's what's done normally, and it's not much fun. If you've a good coach to push you through it, you will get through it. But to try to do that by yourself is tough. To have the discipline to put yourself through that is pretty tough. Anyone Can Run is completely different.
Okay.
What you do, and I'll just explain just one simple principle, but it's the most important thing. you need to have two people, and they're walking together. They warm up as per usual, and then one of them is going to start running, but they have to run at the same pace as the other person is walking. In other words, the runner is still running at 17-minute mile pace while the other person is walking at 17 minutes.
But it's just the different...
Very slow running. It's very slow.
Okay.
And sometimes people even feel a little bit awkward that why am I going faster?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I get people to do this is because they're going to be able to go for a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, usually a minimum of 5 minutes without having to stop, sometimes as much as 20 minutes without having to stop. So all of a sudden, the non-runner has run for, let's say, an average of 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And now they're a runner and they feel they've actually achieved something. It wasn't hard.
So they're not scared to go back
and do it again. They're not scared to go back and do it again. They feel a sense of great achievement and pride, and all of a sudden, they're now a runner. So the program really takes them through that process and then gradually and progressively moves them forward. And in time, we introduce the higher intensity stuff. But it's against the background of them being runners rather than walkers.
Yeah.
And
that gives your joints some time to... your joints and your muscles around your joints to get used to that different motion too. Yeah.
So if you're older, overweight, out of shape, that is a much more progressive way to do it than the traditional training programs. And I've seen lots of people make that progress, that transition from walker to runner, but doing it in a way which makes them feel, hey, this isn't so bad. I actually enjoyed this.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. I've never heard of that, and that's awesome, because I do have a lot of people that are like, I would just love to be a runner. Yeah. They don't know really where to get started, and you're right. There are a lot of programs that'll just take you right into it.
The other thing that a lot of people do when they start running is that they go too fast and they get injured.
Yeah.
They start sprinting. They do this higher intensity stuff because that's what the traditional approach says they should do. Yeah. And guys especially, but I think it applies to women too. They do too much, they put themselves under pressure, and they then end up getting injured.
Yeah, because there are just a lot of things that happen to us as we age. Like I said, now I really have to warm up like 20 minutes, like solid warm up. I'm finally warmed up after 20. If I try to do... I think I pulled something the other day when I was doing a cartwheel because I wasn't warmed up.
Yeah, it is so important. I encourage everybody to warm up, but not just to warm up, by the way, but to cool down. And that's difficult to get into the discipline of doing that, but it's so important for the next session that you cool down and you do it in a way so that your muscles are getting used to the cooling down process, and you're not going to be as stiff and sore the next time, which makes that next run all the more enjoyable.
Yeah, and it really does come down to being enjoyable.
Yeah.
Unless you like pushing yourself like that, which, eventually you may enjoy getting to that too.
and that's okay if you're used to it and you're ready to do it. Yeah. And lots of people will push themselves as they progress, but they should walk before they run. Literally.
Yes. Well, my aunt, she started with my program 2.5 years ago. When she first started with me, she was turning 40. She was going through a divorce, and she wore a size 18. And within her first year, she had gotten down to a size 8. And in the beginning, she couldn't even, it was hard for her to walk a quarter mile. Yeah. And just this morning, I saw her share her status update with our group. She just did a 7-mile run at a 9-minute pace, or 9 and change pace, because she's training for a half marathon. So she definitely started very slowly and then got into it and gradually built that up and went from I'm scared to walk around the block and be sore to now I am preparing to run a half marathon, and my favorite part of that training run was the hill. So it's really cool to watch somebody progress like that and get to that point.
Yeah, and it is important that they progress, and it is important that as they get into their fitness and their running, that they actually do introduce higher intensity training. I'm not saying that is bad. I'm just saying it's not appropriate at the start for people who are out of shape.
Oh, absolutely.
But as they move forward and they progress, then they can gradually introduce it, but in a way that is going to be more realistic for them. Challenging, yes, but more realistic, and they're in greater control of what they're doing, and they're more aware of what they're doing.
Yeah, because high intensity stuff. I mean, if listeners are listening and they're not quite sure what high intensity exercises look like, just like Jem just said, as far as running a whole minute and then taking a little time off, and then running 2 minutes and taking some time off. It also looks like doing sprints. It also looks like doing plyometrics, which would be like a squat jump, or you squat down and you explosively jump up. You can see how this would be a problem for somebody who is significantly overweight or not used to doing it. You have to get familiar with the form. Your joints need to be used to doing that explosive movement and that kind of thing. So yeah, starting where you are and then working towards where you want to be. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about running smarter, not just harder, as far as training when it comes to running. So now you've gotten yourself running, and now you are a runner.
Yeah.
Then what? Then how do people train in a smarter way?
Okay, so let us assume that you have built up over a period of, say, 2 or 3 months. I mean, it's going to be different for everybody, and that's what's really important. There isn't one sort of set of rules that fits everybody. So I have to talk in kind of generic terms. So let's assume that it's taken you 3 months and you're now used to running, and you're running 4 or 5 times a week for 30, 40 minutes, that sort of thing. Okay. So what you don't want to do as you progress is just continually go out for a 3 or 4 mile run, running at the same pace the whole time. And there are fitness people out there who are very negative about that, and they're right to an extent, because it's not good to keep doing it. It's a lot better than doing nothing, let me say.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I never poo-poo cardio at all. But you can certainly make that more effective. And so the things that you would do, let's say you're running 5 days a week, I would have 2 very easy sessions, and they need to be really easy. I mean, you're not pushing yourself on those days. They're kind of recovery days in a sense, because you're going to have 1 or 2, depending on your age. I mean, I only do 1 at this stage of my life, and I'm nearly 60. But if you're 35 or 40, you're probably going to be able to manage 2, where you introduce higher intensity exercise. Now, you can do it in what is called a speed workout. So let's say you decide you're going to go to a track. It doesn't have to be a track, but you're going to do 400 meters. So, right. 4 times around the track, and between each one you're going to rest for 3 minutes. Or maybe you'll run once around the track fast, then you do it slow, then you do it fast, then you do it slow, fast, slow, and again you can gradually build that up as you progress. But that's high intensity or speed work, and it's very effective if you want to improve your time. The other thing that you can do is introduce what's called a tempo run. Now, you'd probably only start with a mile, but then you'd gradually increase the length of your tempo run. So for example, let's say you were training for a 5K, you were going to do your first 5K. It would be really nice as part of the training to do a few tempo runs in advance of the actual race. So you could maybe do a tempo run for a mile and a half, and maybe two miles, so that you get used to the idea of racing. It's a higher intensity, it's not all out, but it's great exercise, and it's going to dramatically improve your ability as a runner, and your times will start falling down.
So a tempo run, like say your goal time is a 9-minute mile, that's what you would be doing during these tempo runs, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's say you're normally running at say, let's be conservative here. Let's say you're running at 15-minute mile pace. Okay. So for a tempo run, that would be your easy run, 15-minute miles. So for a tempo run, you might be trying to do 13 and a half.
Okay.
Kind of 10%.
It's pushing it.
Improvement. If you could run for a mile at that faster pace, that would be good. Start off with that, and then gradually increase it up to maybe 2 or even eventually 3. Like last Saturday, I'm not racing at the moment, but I did a 4 mile tempo run.
That's impressive.
So yeah, but I've been doing it for years and years and
Right.
years. So but I build that into my training all of the time. I'm not just going out at the same pace. So the tempo run, I do a little bit of high intensity or speed work. Not as much, probably no more than once a week at this stage.
Yeah.
in
Oh,
my
I
life.
totally see that. It's intense. It's
Yeah.
really intense. It takes a lot of recovery.
Yeah.
It's hard on the body.
So mixing it up, it's of course important to add in your strength. It's important to add in your stretching, and it's probably also important to add in your cross training if you can, so that you're not just running. If you could do some biking or some swimming or some kayaking or maybe a Zumba class or go to yoga, do some Pilates. I mean, all of those things are really important to be part of your total exercise. I have another acronym. I'm big into these acronyms. It's
I
called
love acronyms.
the basics. And the basics, let me come back to the B, but A is for aerobic, S is for strength, I is for intensity, C is for cross training, and S is for stretching. They are the different types of exercise that you need to build into your exercise regimen.
That is so important.
The basics. So let me go back to the B.
Yes.
And this kind of goes right back to maybe some of the things we talked at the beginning. B is for baseline exercise. Baseline is all of the unplanned exercise that we do during the day. It excludes the planned stuff. So it includes the walking, the running, the swimming, the cycling, the Zumba, the Pilates class. So let's assume that you were exercising for an hour a day, 7 days a week, which would be a lot.
Yes.
It would be great if you were, but that would be a lot. There's another 23 hours in the day. Now you have to sleep, but what do you do the rest of the time? The baseline exercise that you do is really important, that you're paying attention to how active you are the rest of the time. And unfortunately, over the years, we have decimated the amount of baseline exercise that we do through all of the changes that have taken place in our lives, from when I was a kid to say what kids are doing today. It's like chalk and cheese. So we need to be conscious about that, and we need to be taking actions which introduce baseline exercise into our daily regimen. And there's so many different things that we could do. If this microphone wasn't sitting right in front of my face right now, I'd stand up and I'd probably talk as I'd walk around as we were talking and doing the interview. That's baseline exercise.
I love that. Yeah.
That type of stuff. Taking the stairs instead of taking the elevator. I mean, we all do that. All of the time. When somebody rings you, pick up the phone, stand up and walk around as you're talking on the phone.
That changes your voice too, right? Like it helps you to project a little bit better and sound more confident.
I think it does. You can, if you're being interviewed, you can become more passionate and more,
I always do. Yeah, if I'm doing an interview at home, I'll have my headset on and I'm pacing.
You're pacing around. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there is something about that. Take a break. I mean, this whole notion of sitting, we spend so much time sitting.
I was just going to talk about this. Yes, I love this.
Sitting is the new smoking. We
Yes.
are spending so much time sitting, including me, by the way. The average adult in America sits for 63 hours a week. That's an average of 10 hours. Think about it, though. We sit in our cars on the way to work and on the way home.
There's no choice in that.
Most of us sit at our desks all day long. And then when we come home, we sit on the couch, we watch TV, or we sit in a restaurant having our dinner. I mean, we just sit. It's the way we spend our time. So we need to be really conscious of, taking breaks, 5 minutes. Let's stand up and go for a walk. Let's go to the bathroom. Drink lots of water, which kind of forces you to stand up and go to the bathroom.
You have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, but if you get into the habit of doing that kind of stuff, all of a sudden you're doing this baseline exercise. And there's a really bad, just to finish on it, people who are active, let's say very active 1 hour, 7 days a week, that's a very active person in my mind. But if they are inactive the rest of the time, they are effectively an active couch potato.
So they're negating, and I was just going to ask you about this. I read a study that was talking about if you sit most of the time, even if you work out 1 hour every day, you are negating a lot of those health benefits that you would have gotten,
Correct.
right?
And what's really scary about it is, as I said, it applies to fit people. So when I read that, I said, wow, because this applies to me. Yeah. There's a tendency for fit people to rest if they're active, if they're doing, really active stuff. They want to rest between their training sessions, so they have an inclination to actually do less, not to get up and move, because I want to rest for my next training session. Can you see that?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. But that was only 1 hour out of your day, versus those other hours that you could have been.
The 23.
Well, I read the article that you wrote, and I'm actually going to link it in the show notes here, because you wrote an article for Oblique magazine, and it's funny because John, the publisher, dropped a box off to me at the co-working space that I work at, and I love working there. One of the reasons, well, it's just an awesome space, but one of the other reasons is because there are these tall tables that I get to stand at, and I stand all day because my brain functions in a much better way by me standing like that. Something else too that I think of, because we when we're sitting, our glutes are not activated. And so there are a lot of times where we're not activating our glutes. So is it kind of a safe assumption to say that it could cause problems in training? Because if you're training and things are tightening up and then you're sitting on them and you're not actually having strong glutes, you could end up hurting yourself by these training periods followed by inactivity periods, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's postural issues as well. We have a tendency to slouch. We really need to be more aware of our time when we're sitting at our desks or sitting just sprawling out, and just know that we need to correct some of the bad habits that we've gotten into.
Yeah.
But the good news is all you need to do is take 5 minutes out, get a little bit of exercise, just go for a walk. I mean, we're not talking about putting on your shorts again and going for a run. We're just talking about getting up, walking around. Yeah. And we can all do it. Just be aware of it. Knowledge is power.
It totally is. That's what it is. And there are a lot of times, too, I remember when I did work in an office, because I worked as a defense contractor and I spent all my hours sitting at my computer. A lot of times I would go get coffee, and I really didn't actually even want coffee in the afternoon. What I was craving was a walk. So I tell my clients and my listeners to just get up and go for a walk. And I loved that you brought up, if you drink a lot of water, then you have to go to the bathroom a lot. And I think just that walking there is so helpful.
Yeah, you're getting 2 for the price of 1.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So we're going to take one more really quick break, and then we're going to come back, and you can find out where you can find more information for Jim and his book and his training programs. You've heard me talk a lot about learning how to reach your fitness goals, and more frequently, how to look as fit as you feel, while learning to stop chasing skinny. And you've also thought to yourselves, I do want to reach my fitness goals in a shorter, more concise way, to stop wasting my time bouncing back and forth from fitness tip to fitness tip in magazines, wasting hours researching the latest and greatest diet, only to end up looking and feeling the same way you've been looking and feeling for years. And my guess is that you've been thinking about this for a long time. Am I right? I know the feeling, because I played these games too, for a very long time, in fact. I'm here to tell you this. Stop thinking and sign up for the SK FitLife Challenge, an online training, nutrition, and coaching program that will lead you through 12 weeks of step-by-step guidance to help you finally reach your goals of looking fabulous and feeling fabulous. You're going to get to free up all the headspace you've been wasting picking through random diet information being fed to you through the media and simplifying the seemingly complicated world of health. Your chances now. Do you really need more time, more information, more plans for the future? Or do you want to become that fit person today? Because the truth is this. You can be that fit person, or you can be the person that sits around thinking about becoming fitter. It's your choice. Read more magazines, blog posts, and bits and pieces on social media, or take action. Because let's face it, if you're not where you want to be, your current program is not working out for you. I want you to be successful. And why is this? Because you've already got what it takes. You've been doing the work all along. It's just been the wrong work. You have the desire, the discipline, and the potential. Now let's get you on the right track so those efforts you are already putting in can take you in the best direction possible. Join me and the hundreds of other SK FitLife clients for the 12-week online fitness challenge at skfitlife.com. All right, now let's get back to the show. Welcome back to the Stop Chasing Skinny radio program. So right now, this is something that you guys hear me say, we talk about. I have a funny shirt that says anything but cardio because I totally went from cardio queen to lifting weights. I still do cardio though. I just want people to do it in the smartest way possible. So I think it's absolutely perfect because Jim has this same philosophy. He already talked about how to run smarter. So if we could talk a little bit about that, what would you like to share with people as far as cardio goes? Because yes, there are a lot of experts that are like, oh, don't do cardio, but that's not what most of us mean.
Well, we were talking during the break about, why have we got to this point with exercise, with what I refer to as the inactivity epidemic? And we've kind of covered the change aspect and we've covered the convenience aspect. But what we didn't talk about was the consensus issue. And what I mean by that is that there isn't consensus among the fitness community as to what exactly people should do. And once we don't have consensus, that leads to confusion.
A lot of it.
And there is unfortunately a lot of confusion out there. People don't know who to believe or what to believe. So what is the truth in a sense?
Right.
And that leads then to the next issue, which is cardio. Cardio is something that, people are confused about. Should they do it or shouldn't they? And there are experts out there, fitness experts, who say that they shouldn't. And then there are others, of course, who say that they should. Now, let me be absolutely clear. I fall down in the camp of that you should be doing some cardio. But I've already made it clear that you should also be doing some intensity. So the truth has to be that you need to be doing both of these things. If you go for a run, we talked about a tempo run, you do need to warm up before you start. You do need to cool down at the end, ideally. And the piece in the middle, you're running at a faster pace, but you're not going all out or anything even close to it in a tempo run. Yeah. In my view, that whole experience is cardio.
Yes.
So how anybody could say that you shouldn't do cardio is nonsense in my view. You just can't do high intensity interval training the whole time. You'd kill yourself.
Yes.
Even
and it wouldn't be fun.
Even the most professional athletes in the world, if you look at them doing a workout, a training, I mean, watch if you ever go to a track or if you ever watch a track meet on TV, you always see the guys warming up. They'll warm up for half an hour before they even go near the track. And what will they do during the warm-up? They'll probably do a quick jog for 10, maybe 15 minutes, sometimes even 20 if they're actual distance runners. They actually need to do that to get into the groove, so to speak, and then they will do some stretching, so some active stretching. As distinct from passive stretching. Then they'll do some what are referred to as stride outs, where basically they're just getting used to running faster. So they kind of build themselves up and then they have to cool themselves down. Now cardio is a part of that, so is intensity. Yeah. And that's where the basics comes in. So is stretching, by the way. If you think about it. So to say that cardio is bad, in my view, is nonsense. It's just, I think what they're saying is, look, if you run 4 times a week and you just run the same old distance, 5 or 6 miles at the same old slow pace, that's not the most effective way of running. Right. I agree with that. It's not the most effective way of running, but it's a lot better than doing nothing.
You're absolutely
So to say
right.
don't do cardio is, again, in my view, wrong. But we can make that much more effective, and we've already discussed that, so I don't think we need to go over it again.
Yeah. No, I do love. Thank you for clarifying that, because I know that, like I said, I wear that shirt. This is anything but cardio. I think it's kind of funny because I went from I was only cardio, and I love lifting weights, and so I think I'm misunderstood sometimes because they do have runners that are like, well, running's good, and I'm like, I didn't say running was bad. I just, from my experience, I was running, like 4, 5, 6 days a week of like 5, 6, 10 miles each time. I wasn't strength training. I wasn't cross train. I was just running a bunch, and so that obviously wasn't balanced either.
That's a recipe for getting injured.
And I did.
Eventually, you just keep on doing the same old repetitive stuff over and over and over again, and you'll get injured. That's what happens.
Yeah.
That's why you need to introduce the stretching, the strength, the cross training. So you're building up, if you like, full body strength, balance, flexibility, so that you can do these things. I mean, it's not rocket science, really. At the end of the day, it's pretty basic stuff.
It is basic.
Basics.
Basics, exactly. But you're right. I think it's whenever we don't have consensus and you hear these things, and now with social media too, it's so much easier to hear these different things and different philosophies, and you don't really, guess what? You don't have to know what you're talking about to put information out there. So that happens a lot, misinformation getting put out.
I mean, one of my pet hates really is the fitness experts who say that you can buy this training program, you only have to do it 3 times a week for 15 minutes, and you're going to be perfect, and it's the panacea, and you're going to be able to lose weight, and you're going to have a body like the models
selling it.
Come on. I mean, that's just not right, and unfortunately, that they get away with that, and it drives me mad. But that's another reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. I want to get the truth out there.
Yep, same here. That's why I like to bring different guests on the show, and just show show the real deal, like the real thing. It's not just a bunch of slick marketers. Like, it's and yesterday's guest said, because we were talking about body image and how you can show these pictures of people on social media, and she called it media literacy. And I thought that was great because you do need to know what you're looking at and where they could have made that up, or that doesn't make any sense at all. So,
Interesting.
Well, thank you so much for this fabulous interview. I've learned so much. I hope that that the listeners have learned as much. It's basics. It's basics, and it's decoding it. And my whole purpose is to help people create their own fit life. So it's not, one size fits all. It's what works for you. I love that you shared that people can be runners if they want to be runners. Yeah. That's just awesome. So how can people find more information on you?
Well, the simplest place to go is the website is getamericamoving.com. So that's pretty easy to remember, getamericamoving.com. And on the website, there is a program section, so they can click on that if they want to look at some of the programs, which includes Anyone Can Run. At the top of the website, there's a green banner where if you click on it, you can get the book, The Exercise Factor. And it's a special deal for people who want to get it on the website, as distinct from going on Amazon or going to your local store. So
that's great. And if you're a listener and you're thinking, well, I'm fit, I'm not at the beginning, this is a really great way to help bring those people who are not fit, who are in your lives, because everybody who is fit has some of these people where they want to be fit, but they don't know quite where to start. And if you're not a fitness professional, especially if you're not a fitness professional, you may not know how to help somebody get started. And a book like this would be just fantastic. You could share this with somebody you love to help them see how they can get started on their journey.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah, no, it's been really a pleasure, because I just see so many people wanting to get started and they don't really know how to get started. So this is great. So thank you so much. And we will have all the contact information in the show notes as well. So if you're driving or walking your dog, hopefully walking, that's great, then you can just come back to the show a little bit later. All right. I'll talk to you next week.
Can I be love? Can I be love? Can I be